Good morning, everybody. Moving on to in third place, where we really are at the business end of the discussions about our prime suspects. And these two will put equal third place. We've still got first and second place to look at, but in equal third place, as far as the murder of Teresa Halbach is concerned, I would put Ryan Hilgers and Scott Blodon. And of course, as is pointed out by Jerry during trial, questioning Tom Fassbender, it tends to be people we know who tend to commit murders. And certainly Ryan Hilgers knew Teresa very well. And obviously there's a motive in that Teresa didn't want anything to do with Ryan. They'd broken up months previously. And it bizarrely, you know how Ken Kratz likes to say that Teresa was lured to the salvage yard and she didn't want to go there. Nothing could be further from the truth. She was quite happy to go and see Steve, but she actually turned down a photography job, a paying photography job, in order to not go and photograph a wedding, because she knew that Ryan Hilgers would be there. Now, it's suggested, of course, that Ryan Hilgers was jealous of Teresa having broken off with him. It's interesting, isn't it, that he denies any romantic relationship between Teresa and Scott Blodon, even though they're staying in the same house. And it's been suggested, of course, that Ryan therefore has a motive. I would find that rather strange, that a huge coincidence to the benefit of Manitowoc County if it was Ryan Hilgers. Early on, people were suggesting that maybe Teresa made it back where she was confronted by Ryan, who was livid with her getting ready to go off to this party dressed as a cowgirl, and that he bludgeoned her to death in the driveway. As I say, it would be hugely coincidental and hugely beneficial to Tom Kasurik and Dennis Vogel if Teresa was murdered, nothing at all to do with the civil suit, the 36 million. But I suppose coincidences do happen. So we cannot show that kind of bias that's prevalent in other places. With Ryan Hilgers, the really strange thing, isn't it, that Teresa Halbach's day planner was in his possession. She had it the day she went missing. How did he end up with the day planner? Also, if you remember, when it comes to Scott Blodon, there's a picture of him being interviewed in the kitchen of the house that he shares with Teresa. And there you can clearly see the key, the magic key with the blue lanyard. Some of you will remember a while back that Eric Ose did a series of videos. They were quite long, Sunday night, and they were great presentations by McGilla, the gorilla, a Redditor who's put in some amazing effort to try and make sense of the various aspects of this case. And I remember he did an excellent presentation explaining the dog scent patterns, where the dogs had gone, the trails that they'd followed, and tried to explain just exactly what was causing that. And of course he put forward the theory, which is to me totally plausible, was that because Ryan Hilgers was then staying at Teresa's house, sleeping in her bed, maybe walking places where Teresa had walked, and basically had picked up Teresa's scent. And this is why the dogs were going all over the quarry, but never the salvage yard, you know, because let's face it, Teresa was hardly there. She was gone. She popped in and left again. Literally maybe 30 seconds later, after having taken a couple of photographs. She was in a hurry, we know that much, but we do know that she was followed out of the salvage yard, because that person has actually admitted that, yeah, he saw her leave. So yes, McGillar talked about the scent trails that the dogs followed. The other thing was that she had a cat. The cat, you know, would have been rubbing against Ryan, and therefore, you know, as I say, picking up the scent of Teresa. And of course, the main thing that leads us to believe that Ryan was up to no good on the salvage yard is the fact that when the search party went there on the Saturday, or went searching, one member of the search team who arrived later, was that because she'd been to see Sheriff Pargle, been given a direct phone line to Jerry Pargle, and then picked up from Ryan a camera, Scott Blodorn's camera, and a map, presumably some instructions as well as to how to find the RAV4, because she managed to do it in what, 25 minutes. Amazing. The other questionable thing about Ryan, and again, it just all points to him. If he didn't actually murder Teresa, he knows details about the murder. What was really bizarre was that the flyers that they had done of the missing, you know, Teresa missing, are actually dated the day before she's reported missing. Very bizarre. And talking about reported missing, Scott Blodon, Teresa doesn't come back Monday, either to get ready for the party or after the party. You know, she doesn't come back on the Tuesday or the Wednesday. It's the Thursday before Karen Halbach phones up to report Teresa missing. And again, some people maybe unfairly have suggested that there's a calmness. They've described Karen Halbach as being as if she was making a phone call to order a pizza or something. Again, everybody has a different way of reacting, and maybe hers was to try and stay calm and to give as much information as possible. But yeah, not reported missing. You know, this just Teresa Halbach that just doesn't go anywhere without telling people. She's not done anything like that before, where she's been absent, having a fun time, and not bothered to tell anybody for a day or two. As I say, Thursday before Karen Halbach phones in. And what on earth is the what on earth are these scratches on Ryan's hands? They definitely look like scratches. Some people have tried to suggest it was maybe just ink from the flyers. No, it would be all over the fingers, all over the hands. Why just the back? As I say, the back of the fingers. So yes, it's interesting that, because as I say, Ryan tried to hide the fact and conceal the fact that Teresa and Halbach were emotionally connected. And yet, obviously, probably, hate to say this, but probably my main concern about Ryan is that any association with Mike Halbach immediately makes things look dodgy. And again, we can't always go by body language, but there are aspects of them chatting, talking to reporters, that is highly, highly suspicious. And once again, I would suggest that if that had been an interview You know, the one where Mike and Ryan are together, and they talk about, you know, have you been on the yacht? Oh no, we're not. And they're looking at one another, and you know, Ryan's looking at Mike, and Mike at Ryan, as if, you know, we must make sure we get the story straight here. It's been suggested that there's definitely some deviousness going on there. But personally, do I think that Ryan Hilgas murdered Teresa? Probably not. I would have to say it, and probably that's why he's in third place, and probably Scott Blowdon even less so. But they certainly have, once again, a lot to answer for. As I say, if it had been Steve Brendan giving those kind of interviews and having the information, you can bet your bottom dollar the police investigation would have really focused on, and the reporters would have really focused on what Stephen Brendan had said, if it had been them saying those things. So as I say, not likely that it's Ryan Hilligus, because, as I say, the timing is just too convenient for Manitowoc Sheriff's Department, and you know that the coincidence would be staggering. You know, the chances of all that coming together, this perfect storm for the Sheriff's Department. But as usual, let me know what you think. There are obviously people out there that are very concerned about Ryan, his whole actions, the fact that, you know, the police never even formally interviewed him, and it's quite common, isn't it, for people who have perpetrated the crime to then insert themselves into the search and to sort of try and take over what's going on with regard to searching for somebody. Again, looking at the Soham murders, Ian Huntley inserted himself into the whole of this sort of investigation and search for Holly and Jessica. So it does, you know, history has a way of proving us that these things happen. Anyway, we'll move on shortly to second place and first place. The other thing I suppose we could say is that, and I think this has been suggested anyway, is that you've got these various bad actors that have, in a way, for the benefit of Manitowoc County, come together and have been doing their own little bit by themselves, not realizing other efforts by other people. But it's all come together to create a really difficult case to try and figure out when you're left with so many suspects and, you know, so little investigation done of these suspects, that it's, you know, years later, you know, people are looking at this case, and I'm sure some of the best researchers out there at times are pulling their hair out, wondering, you know, well, how did that happen? I always remember discussing, you know, who are the main suspects a long time back with Ali Apperson. And he said, and even she's pointed out, you know, with every suspect, there's always a little bit of doubt about that, where you could argue, well, it's not that person because. Anyway, as usual, let me think. Sorry, please let me know what you think. But I suppose in the bigger picture, as suspects, certainly Ryan is hugely suspicious in the efforts to frame Stephen Avery. But as with the pressures that were brought to bear on, well, as we know, Brendan wasn't able to withstand any pressure at all. But it seemed very likely. Barb keeps telling us there was huge pressure put on the family. And what sort of leverage did they have to get Bobby to do whatever he did? And did they have similar leverage on Ryan by suggesting, if you don't help us out, we will investigate you and we will make you our prime suspect? One wonders what sort of pressures were brought to bear on Ryan. So as I say, let me know what you think in the comments below. So as I say, we've now got first and second place we'll get to eventually. In third place, Ryan Hilligus, Scott Lowdon. In fourth place, the Mike Halbach and the theory that Teresa might still be alive. In fifth place, we've got Wayne Edwards and Kucharski's aliens. After all these years of looking at the case and having, as I say early on, dozens of lengthy conversations, sometimes 20, 25 minutes with Robert Herman, never once said anything that made me think, oh, hold on a sec. Maybe Stephen Avery are guilty. Maybe Stephen Brendan are guilty. And again, if in case you haven't heard this before, but in one of the conversations, Robert said to me, I'll send you the link to Dan O'Donnell's Rebutting a Murderer. It's like a 10-part, and it's a video, and it's all sorts of stuff. He's now made it into a podcast. I say Dan O'Donnell, a really pathetic excuse for a journalist, really on the side of the police and corruption and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, he did this thing called Rebutting a Murder, and Robert said to me that had I listened to it, had I watched it? And I said yes. I had it previously watched, some of this Rebutting a Murderer, but by then we were getting on quite well. He'd mentioned that he'd looked me up and realised that I was a musician in the Scottish Borders and I play the accordion, and we got on chatting about the fact that his mum plays the accordion as well. That's Mrs. Herman, but Robert was never married. He had a girlfriend and they had a son together, and the girlfriend then ditched Robert for somebody else in the sheriff's department, and guess what, that guy was promptly fired. I wouldn't hold that against you, Robert. But I said to him, about this Rebutting a Murderer, and I said to him, Robert, has anybody said to you, well, thanks for that information. I actually watched that and listened to Dan O'Donnell, and that's changed my mind. That's made me realise that Steve and Brendan are actually guilty. He said, yeah. He said, yes, there was somebody in town who stopped him in the street and said that I've just watched that and listened to Dan O'Donnell and his Rebutting a Murderer, and I had previously signed the petition to Barack Obama and was, convinced of Stephen Brendan's innocence, but now I've changed my mind. And I said to him, well, that's great, Robert. I'm really glad that Mrs. Herman is now on your side. You've only got several million people now to convince otherwise. Anyway, that was my little jibe at Robert, and he took it in fairly good humour. So as I say, we'll move on to parts. This is 4, so 5 and 6 to go, and we'll catch you later. And by the way, it was very nice to catch up with Jeff Jones early this morning, 7 o'clock this morning my time, and he's doing an excellent series of videos about making a murder called Discussing a Murder, where he's got a panel of top-notch experts and guests talking about the various episodes of Making a Murder and just giving their thoughts, discussing Making a Murder. So if you get the chance, pop along to Jeff's channel. subscribe, hit like, as I say, as members of the community used to say, leave your DNA on the like button and the subscribe button, and we'll catch you all again soon. Bye for now.